Welcome to the Wickedly Branded podcast. I'm Beverly Cornell, the founder here at Wickedly Branded. And we are talking all about chapter 13 of the Marketing for Entrepreneurs, the revised edition. This is the quick guide to sparking that you're marketing. And chapter 13 is all about how momentum lives in the follow-up. So this is something I think that changes businesses really quietly, is follow-up. This is the part of marketing that rarely, I think, gets talked about. It's like the non-sexy part of marketing, but the most relational and most important. It's far less glamorous than launching. It's less visible than posting. It's less energizing than creating something new. And yet it is where relationships deepen and revenue will stabilize and increase for you. Most of the growth I've seen inside long-term businesses has come from conversations that continue. Someone read something, someone reached out, someone said, I've been thinking about this, and then the thread stayed alive. When I look back at the seasons where our agency grew steadily, there is a pattern that I've seen repeated. The message stayed consistent. The visibility rhythm was held, and conversations were tended to. There is something deeply relational about that, because here's what happens often. A discovery call ends with warmth and possibility. A DM exchange trails off midweek, and an email gets opened and set aside. Good luck. It happens to me all the time. Life continues moving. Calendars fill and energy shifts, and attention just drifts because we have so many things in front of us. And in that drift, a founder starts to wonder what to do next. I've sat with women who held entire spreadsheets of maybes, names of people who felt aligned, conversations that ended with, I'll think about it, launches that had energy but no formal close. And when I ask what happened after, there's usually a pause. Nothing. I didn't want to push. That pause is huge. It carries a lot. It carries care, it carries self-awareness, and it carries a desire to be respectful. It also carries opportunity that has been left unattended. Momentum lives in the follow-up because trust forms through continuity. And when someone encounters your message again and again, something settles inside of them. We've talked about this. Familiarity builds safety, and recognition builds that steadiness. And steadiness makes decisions easier. I have seen this play out in ways that almost feel quiet and ordinary. A wellness coach that we worked with, she had a group program that filled partially during launch week. The interest was pretty strong, I remember. Conversations were really warm, but after the launch closed, she moved on to planning the next thing. We opened her inbox together a month later. There were 3 people who had written some version of this. Looks great. Timing is tight. Timing shifts. When she reached back out with a short message, it simply said, I've been thinking about our conversation. I'd love to know where you are now. 3 seats filled in 1 week. The message was simple. It wasn't some crazy, urgent message. It was calm, but the care was real. What changed was not the offer. What changed was the continuity. Follow-up is relationship maintenance, and it says, I remember you. I'm still here. It says this work still matters. Follow-up is a psychological rhythm to this that actually I think really gets named out loud. People move through decisions in layers. So there's curiosity and then reflection and then consideration and then action. And each layer requires some time to process. And each layer benefits from another touch point that feels familiar, like you're helping them make the decision by adding that layer. So your message working once is momentum starting. Your message becoming and being encountered again and again is momentum strengthening. So inside our own businesses, I've experienced this personally. There have been seasons when someone joins the Brand Spark experience after reading quietly for months, and they reference a podcast episode from 6 months ago. And they mention a phrase from a post that they saved and reread, and they speak as though they've already been in conversation for us for a while. That familiarity came from repetition of presence. It also came from follow-through. Emails that continued, invitations that resurfaced, and gentle reminders that the door always remains open. There is something powerful about that steadiness. Follow-up becomes easier when it's viewed as care. When you're serving and not selling, you're caring for the conversation, you're caring for the person. You have the medicine that they need for that problem. When I teach this to clients, we make it super tangible. So we identify one category of follow-up at a time. So past discovery calls, warm leads, email subscribers who clicked on a specific topic, podcast listeners who responded. Then we craft a message that sounds like them. It often reads something like this. I'm thinking about our last conversation, the direction you're moving in, and I wanted to check in and see how that decision is unfolding for you. That's it. Simple, direct, human. The energy behind it matters more than the wording. And I've done this through video, and it works really well in video because they can see my energy. They can see that I truly care. This is how I always show up. So it's only helping the continuity, right? The familiarity. When it's written from you, deep presence of you and curiosity, it lands so so much differently than when it's written from urgency. So there's something really important that's worth naming, I think, about our own internal experience with follow-up. Many founders carry a high level of a relational awareness. You sense tone shifts. You feel when someone pulls back. You want your work to feel safe and grounded. You don't want someone to pull back from you. So follow-up aligns with that. It creates space for dialogue. It invites more clarity on where they are, and it brings unfinished conversations to a natural next step. It's where momentum grows, is in those spaces. I've watched businesses plateau for months because conversations was cold too quickly, and I've also watched businesses expand steadily because the founder returned to the people who have already expressed interest. The follow-up itself becomes a brand statement. It communicates a level of steadiness and reliability and care. And over time, those qualities compound, which you talked about, right? And compounding helps to build trust. So if you want to make this practical, here's a way to begin this week. Open your inbox. Scroll through the last 60 days. Notice names that appear more than once. Those are warm leads, if they're not your vendors or whatever. Choose 3. Write 3 different messages and send them before the end of the day. Then let the rhythm continue. What you will likely notice is that the conversations resume with surprising ease and people respond with gratitude. They reference how busy they've been, they express appreciation for the reminder. That is the momentum at work. Inside the brand magic method, we often talk about how momentum builds through repetition and presence, and follow-up is where repetition becomes relational. It turns content into actual real conversations. Your marketing becomes less about output and more about continuity at this point, and continuity creates revenue that feels earned rather than chased. There's another layer to this that matters deeply. Follow-up also builds self-trust. When you return to conversations, when you complete the loop, when you allow things to unfold fully, you begin to experience yourself as someone who follows through. That identity shift strengthens everything else in your market. You show up differently, with steadiness, your offers have more grounded confidence. Like, it just has this ripple effect. Momentum grows both outward and inward. As you wrap up this conversation, I'm going to leave you with a reflection. Look at the last meaningful conversation you had about your work. Has that thread been tended to? If it feels alive, I want you to continue it. If it feels paused, revive it. Momentum is rarely created by something entirely new. It grows by staying with what has already begun. If this episode sounds like it's connecting with you and sounds like something you want to know more of, you definitely have to check out Chapter 13 in the Marketing for Entrepreneurs book, because we expand on this in a way you can sit with slowly. The companion workbook walks you through mapping your own follow-up flow so the process feels natural and aligned with how you communicate. You can find the revised edition on Amazon or download the PDF and companion workbook through the link in the show notes. And when you join us there, you'll also receive some weekly marketing newsletters and podcast episode updates so that these types of conversations can continue with you at a steadier rhythm. And if you feel ready to look at your business from the outside and connect the threads you are too close to see, then the Brand Spark experience at Wickedly Branded creates that space. I want to invite you to do that with us. Momentum lives in the follow-up. Spark what matters, ignite it with intention, and stay with it long enough to grow. Wow, what an incredible conversation we just had. I hope that this episode lit a little bit of a fire under you to finally bring your brand to life in a way that feels true to you. Remember, clarity is the spark, but activation is that fire and flame that keeps your message and your visuals and your strategy aligned, and the confidence that follows. So does that lovely thing called momentum that you've been waiting for. So if today's episode, if you loved it, make sure you are subscribed to the Wickedly Branded Marketing Podcast so you never miss an insight or a conversation. Until next time, dare to be wickedly branded.